AOC. Viewer discretion is advised. Incoming transmission in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another amazing podcast from Outcasted OC, if I do say so myself. Today is a little bit of a different one. Usually we discuss a bit of wrestling, obviously, but then we dip into pop culture every now and again, don't we? And what else are we going to be talking about, seeing as though it just came out yesterday? Of course, it's going to be Ahsoka. Today, I've got with me my lovely other member from Outcasted. We have got Ross, and obviously, you've noticed we've got a special guest. We have got OP1, aka Liam, joining us for today for a lovely conversation about Ahsoka. Now, I want to jump straight into it because we were just about to talk about something before we went live, and that was, Liam, you said you went to the premiere of Ahsoka, and you said controversially. What's going on there?
Well, first of all, cheese favering's on, lads.
It's all good, man.
It's interesting because obviously I'm a wrestling fan as well. So I was like, go on a wrestling podcast. And it's like, we want you on to talk Star Wars. I'm like, well, okay, I'll do that as well.
I guess I'll talk about the major other hobby I have, it's fine.
Well, absolutely. So I did go. It's billed as a premiere. Like some people refer it. It's more like it is a fan event, and it's like what defines a premiere. I don't know. Like TV shows really don't have a premiere, but it's like a fan screening. But yeah, it's like an exclusive screening ahead. They're like. There's some controversy out there, probably more in the American side of things, because Disney are just hammering these fan events at the minute. But it's just all links back to the actor strikes, and some people see it as like scabbing, some people don't. Obviously, I don't. Like I've got a very different view on it. Everybody's got a very different view on it. I've kind of been able to avoid any backlash, but I've seen people get a bit of like jip for it, but. To be honest, I couldn't care less. So probably people avoid it because they know it's wasted breath on me. So
Yeah. I feel like as well, just the controversy side of it is like, it's understandable people arguing for the writers, like striking and everything. That's what everyone's all arguing about, is the fact of, these actors, these writers, everyone should be paid fairly. But also you would want them to go to these fan meetups. You would want them to go to early screenings of it because that's showing your appreciation for the work they have already done. So I
was about to say that. Yeah, because obviously totally in support of the writers and the actors respectively. They should get paid. I mean, especially the writers backstage, they're the ones who, they're the ones who make it all come together at the end of the day. They 100% should get more recognition, more pay. But at the end of the day, you also want to show respect, and you also kind of want to pay tribute to what they've made and what's already out there. Like them strikes are going on at the moment, but what people maybe don't think about is they've been working on this kind of stuff for months. So like the reason why you'd want to go out and support them also branches over to the work that they've already put out. Like support that as well. And like if they want to go to these events, and fair enough. Like if they want to, see the fans, if they want to go and support these, let's say kind of like Comic-Con, small fan events, like stuff like that, then I don't see anything wrong with that.
Yeah,
it's certainly more nuanced, and it's not as black and white as like people would make out. And a lot of people on that side are like, no, you shouldn't do it, and it's like you can't have a conversation with them. Basically, I totally get, and I totally support. Like everybody should strive for a better deal, and obviously this actor strike is, it feels like a bit of a watershed moment in like the future of what cinema and TV is, and it'll play out. It'll take time, and they'll do after that. There's a couple of things there. Is anybody going to watch Ahsoka because I went to a fan event, or are they not going to watch it? No, I'm not that important. Like I have no influence. People are going to watch Ahsoka because they want to watch Ahsoka. There is hypocrisy in it as well, because the unions are like, oh, well, don't support it, but please still watch the show, and that's because the actors get paid for the streams and the views. So they're like, but they can't see like support things. So it's a bit like, well, you can't have your cake and eat it. But ultimately, I'm a fan, right? I'm a paying customer of Disney Plus. I'm a paying for customer of all those other things. I was invited to this event, an event that happens to every one of these TV shows. I just happened to get picked this time. Whether I would have or not because of these remains to be seen, but you play the card you dealt. And yeah, and I absolutely loved it. So yeah, it's good. Enjoyed
it. You're in a unique position here to actually answer the next question is because obviously you went to the premiere, like you went there, like there was a few more fans there, like there was you had people, I'm assuming, critiquing it, people loving it. Like what was the general reaction to the actual the 2 episodes that you saw coming out of there? Like were people liking it? Were people saying this needs work? Or
the show itself.
Yeah, the show itself.
I mean, that was one of the biggest things, the reasons I went. I mean, ultimately, like, so just to clarify as well, I didn't get paid to go. It cost me about 200 quid of my own money to go because I live like way up north, and like, so it was in London. So, and I would have done that if it wasn't for the strikes, and I've done it now. So ultimately, I've done something I would have done anyway. The reason I really wanted to go is to attend with fans. We don't get enough Star Wars. It's been a while since we had a Star Wars film in the cinema, like certainly a new one. Like they didn't end very well, certainly in the cinematic sense. So it was really good to get in with fans and experience it. Now, if it wasn't for the strikes, there probably would have been an actor or two there, maybe just some of the back staff, the like behind the scenes staff who would have given a bit of insight into what it was, and that really hypes it up. We didn't have that, but that was cool because the fans really made that made the experience. I've been together, experiencing it for the first time together. And earlier in the year, we had Star Wars Celebration, which is like the big Star Wars Comic-Con, essentially, like exclusively in London. We went there, and I was fortunate enough to see an episode of The Mandalorian a week early. It was very reminiscent of that. And it's just like a load of Star Wars, a load of nerds, like who love Star Wars, sat in a room together, like nerding out. And Ahsoka was even better because it's essentially Rebels season 5.
Yeah,
and everybody who loves Rebels hasn't seen those characters for like 8 years. So we're like, yes, like give us this, and we just all nerded out together. It was.
I was so emotional during the first episode. I won't lie to you. I mean, like the close to tears. I mean, I say that all over my social medias, but I did shed a tear. I'm not gonna lie. Like the thing that broke me, it was very quite early into the episode, and it was just seeing that mural again of like the whole Rebel gang, and then seeing Kanan in the background, and like I was like, oh my god, just like all came flooding back. The last season of Rebels all just came flooding back, and I was like, I'm strapped in, baby. Let's go. Rebel season 5, like you said, pretty much. I'm in for it already. Let's go.
I love as well with the mural that they kept like the animated versions of them. So it was basically as if it had been lifted out of like Rebels and then put into live action. Absolutely love that they did that.
I also love that, it's been a few like years as well, because the mural had like damaging around it. It wasn't like as perfected as when we first originally saw it. You did see there was cracks starting to form, and I don't, like me as being me with theories and stuff, is that foreshadowing cracks of what the Rebels originally broke, and that there's still stories to be untold and things unearthing. Things like that really plays into it, and I like that visual aspect they gave really early on.
I tell you what was weird about that, right? And like this is me not critiquing it. Like what I thought was weird about it, and I agree, there was a bit of damage to the mural. Okay, but timeline-wise, you see that at the end of Rebels.
Yes,
Ahsoka starts before the end of Rebels. Like that final scene. Like as in like the final scene of Rebels. That's in episode 2.
Yeah.
Why is it damage to the mural in episode 1? I was like, but whatever, I don't care. But now that you mentioned it, I was like, oh, okay, weird. But
this is why I was saying it. Like, I think that's because maybe they wanted to do that because, as you've just said there, Ahsoka is the embodiment of Rebels season 5 for a lot of fans and how we are going to see this. Maybe because Rebels knew it was ending, they wanted the mural to be like, here we go, looks stunning, looks perfect. That's the be-all, end-all. Whereas Ahsoka has now gone, there's more to this story. Let's make it look a little bit tattered and damaged and make it look like the Rebels did really struggle with everything they did. There's like, Mandalorian is the perfect example to explain what I'm going with here. there is always visual details in a lot of things they do, and then you get paid off for it later down the line. Take Grogu's chainmail to begin with, where Grogu takes a hit and we're like, oh no, what's going on? So then you realize later down the line, he's wearing that chainmail on his own accord and things like that.
It's funny that you bring that up because this was part of some of the notes that I wrote for this episode, like just bringing together what people have started calling the Filoniverse. Just because
I think Dave Filoni refers to it as the Filoniverse.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't blame him. His work in his universe.
I don't even know if he was the one who. I don't even know if he was the one who started it, but he might as well be the one who's calling it that now. But it is the Filoniverse. But what I loved about it is everything is being like tied together now from the animated shows, not just Rebels, but obviously you've seen where Ahsoka discovered the map at the Night Sister stronghold. You had the 3 pillars there, which represents the Mortis gods, like the father, the son, and the daughter. I don't know if you guys noticed this, but as Ahsoka goes into, when she gets the lightsabers and cuts a hole and falls into the cavern, you've got statues there of like the open hand of the daughter, the closed fists, the fist of the son, and like the both of the father. And that's exactly what it looked like on the mural of the World Between Worlds in Rebels. How Sabine figured out how to open the World Between Worlds. I noticed that and I was like, oh, that's such a lovely attention to detail that I love about TV shows. And I said this in one of my videos. It's details like that separate a good TV show from a great TV show. Like not just like a callback, just attention to the canon and this show's all about like lines coming together, like finding a path, not just to Thrawn, but finding a path from everything that we've seen so far. And I feel like this is like the culmination of everything that we've seen from like Clone Wars, from Rebels, like the Night Sisters, even, and even something what we'll get into a little bit later. Maybe even Jedi Fallen Order. Because we also see like nods and references to the Zepho in these episodes. So I love those like intertwining details that all culminate in this show.
And I think again, Filoni, I think it was at Star Wars Celebration, he said when he was talking about the Ahsoka series, he's basically been planting seeds all the way through, and he started 21 years ago with the Clone Wars, probably didn't know where it was going to end up, then got the chance with Rebels, then he had the chance with The Mandalorian and like the Book of Boba Fett, and now we're here. And I think my kind of takeaway impression of Ahsoka is this is the culmination. Like we thought the Mandalorian was the main attraction. The Mandalorian is going to be pointing to Ahsoka. The Ahsoka series will be the one that takes us into the end game.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you say in game, and it's quite funny because I was literally about to compare it to like the Marvel phases. It feels like obviously in those in those essences you had the movies to tie all together for the end game and Infinity War, but I feel like you've got the Clone Wars, Rebels, Mando, Book of Boba, Ahsoka. I think this is all tying into, I mean, let's compare it to maybe Thrawn is this universe's Thanos, and I think you're gonna have maybe like a super team to come together and like maybe the team.
I could see that though.
I actually couldn't. I'm not convinced that's the way this is
really
going. So have either of you done the Thrawn books?
Yes. Yeah. Are you going to say the Grisk?
So potentially, a lot of people say the Grisk, but like, I personally didn't kind of perceive the Grisk to be this big bad. Like they kind of set up to be. I think they need to be brought in on screen to really feel that out. But it's more like in the Imperial books with Thrawn. Thrawn's not there trying to rule the Empire. He's not, he didn't have aspirations on becoming the next emperor and his whole thing of being there and his whole motivation is to recruit for the Chiss Ascendancy. He sends Eli Vanto back. He tried I forgot the name of the is it Night Swan. I can't remember his actual name. That's his code name. He tries to recruit him. He was actually an enemy, and then he tries to recruit him, but he dies. So, like, sorry, spoiler alert, by the way, if anybody wants to read them books, I highly recommend them.
But highly recommend the Thrawn books. Incredible books.
Through Rebels, we don't. Our impression of Thrawn is through the Rebels' eyes, so they're not going to get that interaction, and they're not going to see that from him. Yeah. But that does exist, and that is canon. So I don't know, this whole like another galaxy thing, does that count as the Chiss ascendancy? Because we know the Chiss ascendancy from this galaxy's perspective is in the chaos, or like it's outside of the galaxy, but is it in another galaxy, or is it just outside? Like, we don't know. So is that where we're going? Are we going to the Chiss ascendancy? You touched on the Zepho, like they were travelers. Are we going to their galaxy? Like, I don't know. I just think it's like kind of too obvious for like Thrawn to be the big bad.
And do you know what? Like, and I agree with that. To be fair to you, I've actually got a video saved in my drafts where I was going to harken back to the Thrawn books, where you actually, like, you know, he's seen as, you know, the heir to the Empire, as you say to the New Republic, like he's the heir to the Empire. But basically in this video, I was saying like he actually isn't the bad guy. That he doesn't do evil for the sake of being evil. He's very logical and he's very tactical. He doesn't do it for any kind of like personal goal. His goal is to like gain an ally, to sit like the whole original goal was to go to this known galaxy where the Empire was and assess if they're a suitable ally for the Chiss to fight the Grisk. And going back to a point that you just said there, no, I don't think this is the Chiss's galaxy, or like where they are, because surely Thrawn would know how to get back from that if it was. I do think it is the Zepho's galaxy, wherever they went to. I do think it is their galaxy. The Night Sister said something about this when someone asked her where is it, or where did you find this information. She says something along the lines of from an ancient civilization who basically left this known universe. Like, and I think that's where the Zepho are. That's my opinion.
I think my other links as well. So when you said about it dropping down into the tomb, or where the key was, I actually got the Zepho from that, not the Mortis arc. We've never really seen the Zepho properly, but the statues kind of had a bit of a long face apparent. But the orb, like the orbs are quite symbolic in like our religion, and they love to carry that across. And obviously in Fallen Order, they use a lot of orbs. But what I particularly found, what it was for me, is especially the time they gave Ahsoka walking around the 4 pillars doing the puzzles. And when you Cal Kestis in Fallen Order, you're doing puzzles. That's how you unlock things. And that for me that's the Zepho. The big question is, how did Morgan Elsbeth know? And this is my only gripe, but I'll give them till the end of the series to explain it, and then we'll see. But how does Morgan know that takes her to Thrawn? Because that's been there since before Thrawn. So if Thrawn's communicating with her somehow, how did he know? Like, they really need to explain that, because that could become a pitfall. But other than that, it was.
I have a theory about that, but Ross, have you got anything to say about that bit? Or
kind of the same thing. Is like from playing Fallen Order, and just the way Ahsoka did the puzzles really gave me kind of the same viewpoint of it being the Zephos, and just how they really kind of played into Ahsoka having to focus on these details of each of the orb and really lining these puzzles up. And as you said about like the whole artistry things like that, I don't feel it's as closely linked to Thrawn. And the reason I say this is because why is Thrawn trying to communicate with another person of higher power to get him out? If he really wanted to do the logic of being evil for the sake of evil, wouldn't he just target the more Force-sensitive people that he knows are of light in these scenarios? Like, wouldn't he put the fear in Ahsoka to begin with? Is kind of how I see it, as he's reaching in a tactical way. He's not just punishing people for the sake of punishing them.
Mm-hmm.
So this leads into my theory, and I don't know. I don't know if anyone else has said this. If they have, I apologize. Not on this podcast. I mean, just in general. This galaxy that Thrawn is in now, I have a theory that the Night Sisters of Dathomir aren't the original Night Sisters. My theory is that the Night Sisters came from this galaxy, and then like thousands of years ago to settle on Dathomir.
Okay.
Just because I think that would provide a link between Morgan Elsbeth, the Zepho, and Thrawn. Like, because maybe Thrawn, let's say, gets put into this galaxy, he gets stranded. Obviously, he's a tactician, so I don't really see him panicking in this situation. I just don't see a panic in Thrawn. I see him working with the assets that he has available to him. Maybe he finds a planet. Maybe he finds the original Night Sisters. Like maybe, let's say, for example, the original Zepho were from the Star Wars galaxy. The Zepho left to go to this galaxy. I'm saying vice versa for the Night Sisters.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe the original Night Sisters are not from Dathomir, and that's how the connection is so strong between Morgan and Thrawn. The fact that maybe like she has her ancestral home kind of calling out to her at the same time, if that makes sense.
Do you know the one thing I would say when it comes to especially the Filoni verse is like literally anything, and if he's planted seeds along the way, like I wouldn't be surprised. And I do have that trust in him to tell that story. He will be very mindful of this, and he wouldn't leave such a glaring plot hole open. So it's kind of that thing where excitement becomes kind of a bit frustration because you need to wait another week.
Yeah.
And then that frustration is like, oh, well, what about this? And you just need to like chill yourself and be like, he's got this. But the other thing I would see as well, what Star Wars do much better than Marvel, and particularly again Dave Filoni, is by the end of the series, we're not talking about anything that happened in the first couple of episodes.
Yeah.
And like 95% of the trailer content for Ahsoka is done, like over them 2 episodes.
Yeah,
so we have no idea what's coming now. And like, you just have to like be patient ultimately. But it's like, I would love it if they just dropped it all, but this is part of the fun, isn't it? Is like waiting each week.
It's the anticipation, isn't it?
Yeah, and the thing is, for me, like, I'm not really invested in the Thrawn storyline stuff as much now. I'm interested more in Balin. I want to know what the heck is going on there, because how Balin was talking still about the Jedis, yet he denounces the Jedis. He's like, you did get one thing right. We are not Jedis. Yet he was talking about the younglings and how they used to be taught and things like that. And it seems like he kind of wants to build his own version of Jedis, is what I kind of saw, like his version of the Force, because how he said he wants to be with Thrawn and everything, because power unimaginable. So the only thing I can think of is if he is granted so much additional power, could he make Force users? Could he literally, like the whole going very in depth with this, like the whole Metachlorians things, making Jedi, all of that craziness. Is the power that Thrawn could give him, is that something he could do of making Force sensitive people again, and he builds an empire of his own?
The Force sensitive people will be out there, but without the Jedi, there's no means of detecting them, because there was the holocron that had catalogued them. But right now, there's kind of it's almost starting again. I took the power references essentially, but I do agree that like he seeks to reform the Order in his image, in his vision, and the power is him as Grandmaster, because he's still very. You could tell he was still very sacred to the Jedi way. And it's interesting when you talk about symbology, like, Shin has a Padawan braid. So
I saw that. Yeah.
That's very Jedi, but obviously by the sounds of it, he was with the Jedi up until Order 66, so you know,
just
he might
before
have,
66.
so just before, okay, but
yeah,
like that,
it's-
literally, like
it's
we
the
don't.
you get the confirmation from what Ahsoka says when the dual saber was flying back towards her,
Yeah.
and she looks at him, and she literally goes, "You were spoken highly of," and that's only one person you can click that
Yeah.
spoke highly of him, and that is Anakin. So
Yeah.
meaning he used to be around the time when the younglings were trained, and he used to watch them. So and Anakin spoke highly of him. So my only logic there is Anakin maybe gave him a warning of get out while you can.
Well, we know he's interacted with Anakin because we've seen from the trailer, and that's one of the bits we haven't seen in the show yet. Is he says to her, "Anakin spoke highly of you."
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Ahsoka says the same thing of like when she looks at all of them, it's like I know, like she knew them. She was like, "You were spoken highly." I allude straight away to it. It's like there's only a few people that Ahsoka would interact with that would speak highly of them. It's either Obi or it's Anakin, and because obviously it being more towards a Sith, my idea straight away was Anakin.
Now, my thoughts on this is, I mean, like I think it's too early to say, but I think it's quite obvious that we're probably going to be getting a few nods to Heir to the Empire in this series.
So. I really hope so.
And for me, Baylan might be the Jorah Sabaoth of this of this series, because obviously I don't want it to be exactly that, but I want it to be, and this is how I saw it was. I don't. If you notice, like in the very first 10 minutes of the episode, when Shim and him are storming that ship, she is going ham on the soldiers, very aggressive.
Yeah,
he's kind of just walking through, very centered, taking out the security, like a completely opposite mannerisms. The way he speaks to the Jedi, it's not hatred, it's more of like regret and maybe pain. Because maybe the most interesting line in the entire show so far for me was when he said to kill Ahsoka would be a shame. There's there's very few Jedi left in the universe, and obviously Morgan says sentimental, and he's just said all he says is truth, and then obviously his hologram disappears. And for me, that's the most interesting thing that's happened so far, because not only does it put his motivations into question, because it obviously is introduced as one of the antagonists. He is now in a light of, oh, what does he want? Like when he gets the throne, is he going to try and insert his own agenda? Because for me, it doesn't seem like he's on totally the same page as Morgan. Maybe not even on the same page as Shim at the moment, is what I'm thinking. I think maybe Shim's going to be influenced by Morgan a little bit more, throughout it.
Shin was one of the interesting ones to me as well, very much for what you said there of like she had more the aggressive side, and I feel like it's very interesting. Baylan is the master to her. It seems like Shin has had prior training to other potential Jedis or Sith users, because there was a couple nods to Maul with how Shin was in how I saw it, and just the way Baylan is, for me, very comes across, and like this is me going really old school wheelhouse, more of like the Knights of the Old Republic, like a very old school Jedi Knight, like more of like the not the Inquisitors, more the Holy Knight ones. I can't remember what they were called, the ones with the more like golden lightsabers. He very much comes across like the embodiment of like a sentinel in like his respect for people, but he is feeling the Jedi way has become softened, hence why he's gone this more aggressive approach again. And as I said, it goes back to this whole agenda of what he wants to do, plays into going in with Shin's character as well. Is she leading blindly because he may have said something that struck a chord with her and was like, I want that? Or is it because Thrawn is on the table, then when she gets there, she tries to make her own agenda and screws over Baylan as well because of her aggression?
I think that could happen. especially with what happened with Rey. Like, did they have to change the story, or I mean, they probably couldn't, but I don't know. But there's definitely that sentimental edge with Balin, and I think so there's two parts of that. The first part being Balin grew up he was a Jedi. He was part of the Republic's Jedi. So he will always have that attachment to it and that sentimentality. And as we've touched on, it's almost like he's like, it's not that he was against the Jedi, he just saw it a different way. I think that's what we'll see. We'll just see like him being a bit like, I didn't want to go that way. I almost agreed with Ahsoka why she left, but like we've got to have an opportunity here to rebuild. Shin didn't have that. I don't know how old she is in canon at this stage, but it's very likely that if she was around in the Old Republic, she'd have been like younger, like a youngling, or like even before a youngling. So like there's potential that she's just got no sentimentality to a Jedi, and essentially she's just full of rage. But I think that one of the key things with Balin that I've noticed is it's the orange lightsaber, which people are a bit like, oh, it's just like a bit of a throwback. But I honestly see him as like the mirror image of Ahsoka. So he just sits on the other side of the fence to Ahsoka. She's very kind of pure and light, but she's not a Jedi. He's not a Sith. He's more kind of filled by maybe like frustration rather than anger and rage. And it's almost like he's trying to bleed his crystal, or it's happened or it's like seeped into his crystal. But he's not really that angry and full of hate in the way that a Sith would need to be, or a full Darksider like Kylo Ren. He hasn't got that full rage about him, and so essentially he's just a bit frustrated. Which
you've kind of given me a bit of you've kind of given me a bit like an open eye thing right now, like just literally because I've not really thought about this, but like the way you've described it, it gives me a lot of Dooku vibes, Balin.
Yes.
Like Dooku necessarily didn't leave the Order because he wanted to turn to the dark side. He became very distant, very like he thought the Jedi were becoming very complacent. Like I get that kind of vibe now that you've explained it like that from Balin. Like and maybe
pre obviously Sith Dooku, because he's like
when it became Sith Dooku, Dooku like.
Well, the thing about
Tales of the Jedi Dooku were going on about here, I'd say.
Oh yeah. Well, to be
Dooku
fair,
lost, Jedi lost, and Master and Apprentice.
Sith Count Dooku though, was very like he was in the dark side, but he was never able to embrace the hatred entirely because obviously he never had red Sith eyes, did he? He kind of did it for true independence, and like he kind of fell under the spell of Palpatine rather than joined him like completely. Like and I think that is the tragedy of Dooku.
I think that's probably true of all Sith because of how they are recruited. Like they are essentially recruited in their weakness. They like no, and this is why I think we absolutely need a Palpatine Plagueis story in canon.
Yes,
but just to see how, like, because it feels like Palpatine is the exception to that. He craved the power and the anger, and essentially that the Sith was the path to that, rather than any others who were like seduced to the dark side.
That natural hatred to him.
But like, don't get it wrong, don't get it twisted. Dooku was like a genocidal maniac. He wiped out planets. Like if you've ever read or listened to what's it called? Dark Disciple. Like that's probably peak evil Dooku. But yeah, he's
of course.
But I do agree. It's like and it seems that a lot of went down that route, but found different paths of, the Jedi at the end was not what it was. Qui-Gon was probably on that path a little bit, but again on the other side, he was probably more on the Ahsoka side of the fence of, I just want to be one with the Force and understand where that path takes.
I would definitely say Qui-Gon was his frustrations could be so like very early on in the films as well with like Phantom Menace, and that still he was like, this is not what we would do as Jedis, but now that we are working with the diplomatics and everything, that what like this is what we are doing.
He became very like he was very centered on the Force. He let the Force guide him instead of politics, like you say with Qui-Gon. Yeah, so like you say, Balin does remind you, like I said. I mean, obviously Count Dooku is evil. It reminds me of a Dooku. It reminds me of a Qui-Gon. It does remind me.
I'd say like that's why I said like Tales of the Jedi Dooku, where Dooku didn't want to do these aggressive things, but because he was not being understood or heard, and he saw the corruption of government, he saw the corruption of people, he saw the corruption of the people he had been following his whole life, because the Jedi not appreciating him or understanding him, and then also not making his Padawan a full Jedi as quick as he asked them to. He was fed up. He was frustrated. So I definitely agree that Balin comes across as that very Tales of the Jedi, like Dooku era. Going to that bleed comment that you mentioned as well, I don't think it's out of frustration or anything like that, because we know Balin kind of left around Order 66. I think it's based on grief. I think he still has all that respect for the Jedi, and I think it's pained him that his vision of the Jedis, he couldn't stop Order 66 happening. He couldn't help quicker. So there is the grief, and it's just the sorrow that has slowly bled the crystal out of the frustration and grief, but it can't finalize it.
And if he was a Sentinel, that would absolutely hit even more, because his whole job was to like be the guard of the realm, essentially.
And that's what I'm saying. That's why he gives me that Sentinel vibe, because of the way he talks, the way he walked, the way he even holds the lightsaber. He holds it in a traditional knight's stance. He doesn't do very much like the newer Jedi ways, which are very much Japanese stances. This is me going very sword in depth and very nerdy. Because
I mean, that's what it is. It's a spear sword with samurais.
But that's what I mean. Like, all of them have unique sword stances. Ahsoka's is based on Tantos, which are like guard batons, and that's why she holds the lightsabers upside down instead of upward. Things like that. All these different Jedis have different unique stances. And when it was the Sentinels, they were European knights, so they stood very strong, lightsaber up here, very formal guard, and that's how he walked around and was fighting when he did it.
And it really, if that was, if at that grief point as well, that does link back to Dooku, especially in Tales of the Jedi, because when he sees Yaddle killed, there is a moment of grief just before he turns. You see that regret is like, that's what it's come to, and then he realizes he has to give himself up, just like with Anakin and Mace Windu. So
even in the Attack of the Clones, you see it as well. Like with him, even when he's a little bit further down the line, like he's I feel like he's very regretful even when he talks to Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
So it's very like that Dooku is the one that I'm talking about. That like sort of that version of that reminds me of Balin 100%. Let me pose another question to you in regards to Balin. Like we're talking about like his connection with Ahsoka possibly, and his maybe possible at the end of this show, maybe him, turning around and maybe, going in a different direction. Do you think we'll maybe get a Luke interaction around, like maybe as a bit of an Easter egg? Like, because we know that Luke is kind of on a different path than the Jedi, but at the same time try to rebuild it in a different image.
I don't think yet. I think Luke's story now ties more into the Rey TV series that they're going to do of rebuilding, like rebuilding all the Jedi going forward, and Rey being like a grandmaster teaching people, because that's what they've said the story plot is. I feel like Luke is going to be, we're going to have like an in-between of where he started building up the Jedis, how Kylo Ren had his scenario happen. And I feel like they're going to try and keep the canon of the previous, like the most latest 3 movies kind of as best as they can, but they're going to tweak it to fit. I think this story with Ahsoka is more, I have to do this before the galaxy gets destroyed, and then I'll focus on helping other Jedis.
For real. But at the same time, you've got to think about it as, I mean, at this point down the line, it's been around 10 years since the Empire fell. You've got another 20 years to fill, timeline-wise, until we get to the time of the Force Awakens. It's a difficult situation because real life takes over here, because obviously the actor Ray Stevenson, God bless, has passed away. So it's hard to think of a way forward for a character like Balin. Like, do you understand what I'm saying with you guys?
I do.
100%, yeah.
And I, to be honest, I think even I don't know if I'm led by the Rhea Stevenson situation, but I do think at the same time, like it feels like it's been set up to almost be like redeemed in our eyes, and then as you said, like is Shin, maybe Morgan Elsbeth, like did they have a different view, and essentially did they become the master and apprentice? So I do feel like he's kind of like he was always planned to be a bit of a one series character, but there was a thing that made me think that he essentially got a hallway scene, which doesn't happen by accident. And it's like they're kind of like hyping him up symbolically. So yeah, I think there's some there. But on to your question about the Luke thing, I don't know. Like I realistically don't know, because I didn't foresee him coming into the Mandalorian and then the Book of Boba Fett. But there is definitely a story there to be told, and especially as we see more Order 66 survivors, the question would be why is Luke the Grand Master of the new Jedi Order? Well, he might well be of his Jedi Order, because again they haven't reconnected, but we might see multiple Jedi Orders set up in parallel, and then potentially there are very contrasting views, and we almost get like a Jedi civil war, like small battles and conflicts. And we might see that here, because there are still a lot of Jedi out there that we know when we get to the sequel trilogy don't seem to be there. And like Luke's very like apparent that they're gone. He's like, well, the Jedi are gone, like you are the last. And is there a story to tell there about the feelings of the resetting of the Jedi Order? But again, it's all fan theory.
To add to your Civil War thing, because I really do like that. We did get shades of that in Mandalorian season 3 as well, with the two different Mando Corps, like obviously the ones that followed Maul. So we've got that kind of thing going on now. So maybe some of the more Mandalorians get involved with it as well, or
that's what Mandalorians do. They love to fight.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying,
especially each other. But
but this is where I was going to line into that. There is one particular Mandalorian we definitely need to talk about that can line that scenario up. Sabine, she's learning the ways of the Jedi, but she is also a Mandalorian. Perfect scenario if she would be in a rock and a hard place if some of the Mandalorians started kicking off about how the Jedis are now fighting each other. Where does her loyalty lie? Does she lie with Ahsoka and the Jedi line, or does she lie with the Mandalorians?
Before you answer that question, the question answer is she Force sensitive or not?
Exactly. Yeah, that was this is the other big one, because yes, she's rocking a lightsaber. Yes, she's quite well versed with it, but you don't have to be Force sensitive to use the lightsaber. Perfect scenario. I can never pronounce his name. Din Mandalorian.
Din Djarin.
Din Djarin. There we go. Thank you. I can never pronounce it. But yeah, Din Djarin. He's not Force sensitive at all. He never has been, and yet he can still rock the darksaber. I mean, darksaber has different properties, but it's still a lightsaber nonetheless.
Yeah.
My answer to that is, before we move on, I hope not. And the only reason I say I hope not is because not everybody has to be Force sensitive. Not everyone has to be great with the Force. Like you say, she got taught how to wield a lightsaber. Like Kanan taught her how to use it. That's fair. That's fine. That's good enough for me. It's a weapon. She's a Mandalorian. Weapons are part of their religion. She should be able to wield a lightsaber.
Yeah.
Like that should be enough. Like,
wholly agree. I think it almost takes away from a little bit if they do. Where there is, I think we'll get a scene where she essentially goes full Mandalorian, jetpack, like the shield on her gauntlets, like we'll get, and that'll be her. I think as well, people get a little bit caught up. I think people got a little bit excited on it, but then they forget that Ahsoka isn't a Jedi now, and she keeps saying the Order is gone. Like Ahsoka doesn't even consider herself to be a Jedi. Yeah. So that whole Padawan relationship is a very different thing for them. She's teaching her to be a warrior, not a Jedi. So
I was going to say her way of Padawan was more as I respect you as my partner in a scenario. I read that. I didn't read that as you are now going to learn the ways of a Jedi because, as you perfectly said there, she denounced her Jedi-ness. She doesn't believe in the Order. She just believes in what is right and wrong for the galaxy and her pureness of following the Force. Hence why she did some of the reckless things she did when she was younger. She, went against quite a lot of what Anakin said because in her eyes, that wasn't the correct Jedi way of things. And this is the thing. Jedi is, as people say, a religion, and also it's a fighting style. They can be interpreted in so many different ways. So many people have picked up the way of the Jedi, like how a lightsaber is used in so many completely different ways. Like, take the Mandalorian's code. Where is that not a Jedi thing? The only thing different is what's good and what's evil in the eyes of those people. They are basically near enough the same code.
Yeah, and I think a lot, and that's it. It's a code, it's a religion. Jedi is not, I'm on the light side of the Force, so then I'm a Jedi. Like a lot of people, and it's likewise, people quite often get mixed up and think, oh, well, he's a dark sider. Is he Sith? He's not. So it's essentially a code. You sign up to it. It's a religion, it's a way of life. And just like the Mandalorians probably even more so because of their, like, people see them as a race, but they're not, because they essentially adopt anybody into their creed. One thing I will say about Sabine, and we have to say this, and I think it's true across the board, but Sabine more than anyone, the casting is fantastic.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Legit, it was like, take my animated favorite character of Rebels and just slap it into a live action, and there was like no took me away. There wasn't she doesn't sound right, or she hasn't got the same mannerisms. It was literally point for point perfect for me. I'm like, I just want all of that.
Again, attention to detail as well. Like the fact that the artwork is still a core part of her character. I absolutely loved it. It might have been my favorite part of the TV show so far. I absolutely loved the fact that she was the one who was able to work out the map. Mainly because it was all about artistry, because of the 3 pillars and 3 faces that she realized. I think it was amazing the fact that the way to find Thrawn was through artistry, seeing as though obviously one of his main characteristics is he studies art. So does Sabine. I think little details again like that really make sense in this like universe that you're trying to build, and I'm so glad that they've stuck to Sabine. I agree with you that like the casting is absolutely fantastic. I think she's doing a phenomenal role so far. I think she's stealing a lot of screen time away from Ahsoka just because she's so good.
I mean, I'm happy to have a Sabine series on its own personally. Sabine for me was like the selling point of Rebels for a long time. I was just invested in that character.
I would love to see. It's probably not going to happen in this TV show, but it's probably going to be Mando season 4. I'm assuming that we're probably going to be getting a Sabine Bo-Katan reunion.
Please. Because they did kind of already tease that, and I'm here for that.
I would love to see that. We are missing something very important though, guys, and it is a theory that has been streaming all over the internet ever since this episode came out. And for me, I made a video on it and I was like, no, this is a load of rubbish, but we've got to talk about it, because if we didn't, then it'd be a massive thing. Merrick, and if you don't recognize the name, he's the guy with the double-edged sword who was fighting.
He's using the Inquisitor blade, and he's got like the armored mask. He's like very. This goes back into what I was saying about the whole Sentinel thing. Why is he so knighted up? He literally looks like the embodiment of like a knight in armor.
Well, this is the question. For me, it's no.
I know the one you're gonna say.
Is this Ezra? Is it Ezra?
Hell no. Right. Ezra's fighting style was so unique in Rebels. I could not see Ezra go and pick up an Inquisitor blade and be just as good with it and pick up all the ways of an Inquisitor style. Ezra's whole thing was literally a carbon copy of his master and then tweaked it to his own style as well. You can't pick up such a blade like the Inquisitor one in my eyes and be just as good with it, if better. Like
this for me is an example of people not thinking things through. And what someone on my comment section said it perfectly. Someone on my comment section said it would probably be the biggest character assassination in Star Wars.
Yeah,
like,
it would ruin the whole demeanor.
And here's why. Let's say this is Ezra. How has he got back from the galaxy that Thrawn doesn't know how to get back from?
Yeah.
First of all.
Yeah. That was my whole point. Yeah. You don't need to have any more of an argument on that because
no, don't worry. But yeah, you don't need more. But I'm going to provide more. Don't worry. Number 2, why would Ezra be then helping people to find the map to get back to Thrawn? Surely he already knows how to get back.
Yeah.
3.
Yeah.
Number 2. I've got more. Don't worry. Number 3. Why would Ezra want to find Thrawn? He sacrificed himself to get rid of him.
Yeah, I can answer that one.
Oh,
that's the only.
Before you do, the biggest one, number 4. There is no universe where Ezra would use an Inquisitor lightsaber.
Thank you.
All the troubles that the Inquisitors put the Spectre crew through, him and Kanan through, Maul had a double-edged lightsaber. There is no way he would ever use that kind of lightsaber. He just doesn't. For me, that's the biggest one. He would never do that.
Can I offer one that's even bigger for me? Like why it's not Ezra.
Oh, go on.
Ezra wouldn't be so subservient, essentially.
Yes.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
I can absolutely see, and this is why this is the only reason I could see him. Like it's being him, but I absolutely don't think it's him. But I could see us getting a dark side Ezra on this, like in some way, because he's dabbled with it. They've definitely laid that foundation. The dark side never really leaves you. Thrawn is the master manipulator. Ezra's got no way of getting away from him.
Yeah.
But yeah, if that's Ezra is as a dark sider, he's leading. He's not following.
I would agree with that. The only way I see a dark side Ezra is like I do agree with the Thrawn thing, but because it's been so long, I feel like kind of how Vitiate turned Revan in a way where he's had him kind of like locked up all this time, like and then he's only just kind of like let him loose upon the galaxy. That's kind of the only way I would see Thrawn manipulating him, like because like I say, he sacrificed himself for his family. Like, maybe it's been a long time, and like maybe he's given up on Sabine finding him. But that is the only way I would see him turn into the dark side. A dark side Ezra would be cool, and I could totally see it happening. But it's a very fine line that you're walking when you're doing that, and you need to write it correctly.
What's not to say? And this is a big reach, but after what we saw in Mandalorian, there are shiz that is still possible. What's not to say is Maul himself. We saw full cloning capability towards the end of Mandalorian, where they were literally making multiple of Moff Gideon. Like, what's not to say somewhere down the line there is parts of Maul's DNA somewhere in space that was found. I know it's a massive reach.
I feel like the fandom would give up all hope, even.
I feel, yeah, but like part of me feels like they would still kind of go that kind of will they, won't they? They'll like, because you give me a dual lightsaber person who is a Sith who embodies all black armor and is not really talking but shows a menacing presence. That gives me all the tick boxes of Maul with just out him speaking.
I'm a big Maul guy. I mean, he's right there in my corner. Like, I'm a huge Maul guy. But like what Liam just said then, but the way his ending came about in Rebels was perfect.
No, I agree. I 100% agree. But what I'm saying is because of Filoniverse and how they kind of teased cloning as an option, and they were kept doing these little nods to Maul and how Maul was training Mandalorians. Maybe, and as Filoni said, I kept dropping hints. What's not to say that's hints he's dropped?
So, to spin it a different way from Marok, I do think it's somebody we've met at some point. How prominent that person is, I don't know. I heavily thought it was going to be Barisofi until it still could be, but the person in the suit is a man. So I think that would be too much of a swerve. I think they would have to give them a bit of a feminine body, but especially because Barris was quite tall, slender. But,
I was going to say it was like very feminine designed. Yeah, I get why you're saying that.
They can get away from that slightly, but Balin referred to Marok as he or him.
Yeah.
And again, I think Balin knows who it is. My flip on it is if I was to just go the wild theory, I actually think it's going to be one of the Padawans from the Gathering episode in the Clone Wars. I think it's just going to be like one of them. And it's not going to be like this big prominent character.
But that'll still be a really cool thing.
But then do we get Gunji return in as a grown-up Gunji? Because we got him in the Bad Batch.
I would love that,
And then just like that core group, because my logic there is I'm trying to think of characters who rotated around Ahsoka.
I tell you who it would be great as well if it was one of the Gathering Padawans, and I can't remember his name, but the one who was very frustrated about finding his crystal, who got trapped in the ice.
Oh yeah,
I think, and I don't know who it is, but he's the guy who voices Jeff on American Dad. Him.
I love how you know
it's
that.
him. I recognized his voice immediately when I was watching the episode. I was like, "It's Jeff."
Is he the one that's the same as Kit Fisto? I don't know what Kit Fisto's species is.
Oh, no.
Is he that one? Or
no, I don't think. I think he was a human. I think
because I thought the only human one was the one who's like very egotistical, runs off, gets his crystal first, then gets back to Yoda, and then his crystal breaks and he has to go back in.
That's the one I was talking about. My bad.
Oh, yes. Okay. Yeah.
Yes. He leaves that other person trapped in the ice.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
My bad. Yeah, the other way around. If it was going to be anyone,
my pick.
It would be him. Yeah. Yes.
That would be my pick. Yeah.
I'm literally looking at the names of all the Padawans.
Oh yes, like if you find out just look who plays the character of Jeff in American Dad. And then
Petro is the human.
That's him.
He is the one that does all the leaves them, runs off. You've got Katuni, which is a Feluvian. It's the ones with the green nasals, big black beady eyes.
Oh yeah.
The only way that I can explain it is the aliens that it's in the cantina bar that play on the flute.
I thought they were Rhodians.
Are they the Rhodian? This shows how bad I am with the aliens in Star Wars.
Okay,
the people who play the flutes are called Biffs, aren't they?
The cantina band players are,
yeah. You've got Biff. You've got an Ithorian, Gnodi as well, which is a Rhodian. Zax, and then Gunji, which is the one.
That's a good shout. I would say Petra. Yeah, I 100. Like if it is going to be one of those, I would say
that would be really cool. I think that would be a nice little payoff to like the Rebels fans who saw all of that and saw the Padawans and Clone Wars as well. I feel like
it's probably going to be someone totally different that nobody's guessing. Like as I see it, by the time we get to it, we'll be totally forgetting about these episodes and be like, oh yeah.
I've not played the new Jedi Fallen Order, but is there any chance it could be Cal Kestis?
No.
Is there no chance it could be him at all? So I've not seen the end of it. I don't know.
Without spoiling the whole game, there are times where they play into him going to the dark side or playing into the dark side and being seduced to it, but he also kind of rejects it. He doesn't fully take the dark side. I think it's more for gameplay sense they do that, so you can have the fun of doing Sith combos and Jedi combos in like the combat style of the game. Story-wise, they don't really significantly have this point where he is like, I am going to be a Sith.
Right, okay.
I think as well, you could certainly make an argument for it, but if we're going to get the reveal this series, that reveal should come in the game. It shouldn't come, and we don't get that reveal in the game.
Yeah, you wouldn't take something so significant from the game franchise and throw it into a TV series for people because it would take them away of like, well, I've just played this whole story and this dude still finished as a Jedi and still was helping out people. Spoiler alert, by the way, if you haven't finished the game, you know, he's the good guy. He saves the day. What do you want to know? But you get what I mean? You wouldn't give such a crazy reveal of, oh, I've joined the dark side and now I'm using an Inquisitor blade. Because another thing there, you take away the coolest thing from Cal is being able to create unique lightsabers and using the multiple lightsaber styles. Because of the game, obviously they've made ways that's possible. But if he's going to be in a show, you would need to explain why did he pick the Inquisitor blade as the option of why he's using all of that. Because he can easily dual wield on the same level as Ahsoka.
Yeah.
So why would you not make him? Why would you not make him do that instead of going an Inquisitor blade? That's just my thinking there.
Okay. I'm just trying. This is an interesting subject we're on right now. Like just coming up with like possibilities to see could it be.
It's difficult. It's so difficult because they've really just thrown him in and gone. Here's this really cool masked like Sith dude that's decided an Inquisitor blade.
Hey, listen, man. Like, if we've got Heir to the Empire connections, could it be a clone from Mount Tantis? Like,
please, I will happily take that.
I think that's possible. Like, because obviously, like Ross was saying before, we've got Gideon. Like you said, the Maul one is a bit of a far fetch, but I could see Force sensitive cloning maybe going on because we do know they're trying to do it with Palpatine.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, that was one of the late projects they were trying to do with the Clone Wars as well. When they started building the clones, they started trying to find ones that were Force sensitive. Hence why we have Omega in Bad Batch. She is Force sensitive. And they didn't realize that. So that's why they kind of already had the thing they were looking for to begin with, but didn't continue it because they never realized that.
Yes. Yeah.
So they have the potential to do Force sensitive like cloning. That's why my whole argument is there. I don't want that because then it retcons a lot of the Jedi are unique. There aren't many Force sensitive left. If we start, we can clone
there's
them.
a flip on that though. I think this is where then the canon side of the Force really then strengthens. Is that you can't clone a Force sensitive and make them Force sensitive.
Yeah.
But it's not to say that a clone can't be Force sensitive because essentially it's the Force that chooses. And that's how that they have no control over it, and that's how they were never able to perfect it for Palpatine, and and Moff Gideon was never able to achieve it. But if the Force selects that living being is to be Force sensitive, it's to happen, but it's totally random, and it could just be anyone. So
I like that.
Yeah,
I like that.
I do feel like Cal is going to make an appearance in Ahsoka somewhere, though. I feel like
you don't hire an actor like Cameron Monaghan
exactly
to keep it as a video game.
This is what I'm saying. Like, don't get me wrong, perfect video game, perfect actor in that video game. I could not see anyone else play Cal the way he plays Cal. But as you said perfectly there, Liam, you don't hire arguably the sole character and actor that carried Gotham. You don't hire someone that good to just make him do a video game. You've got to make him be in Star Wars television.
Well, you'd think like the advert that he did with Mark Hamill as Cameron and Luke, and then he was a big focal point at Star Wars Celebration. Granted, Survivor was just about to come out, but they've really put Cameron Monaghan out there as
they've really put him as a big Star Wars name.
So I think it's inevitable that it will happen. And I think another part of it is they might not know where they're going, or they might not have known where they were going. But what's really interesting is I think all of the actors, essentially the voice actors, have been scanned and look like their characters. It's not like they just voice a character who doesn't look like them. You do that in readiness or preparedness to bring people on screen. So,
that's what I'm saying. It feels like the whole mo-capping thing that they've done now is so they can cast those people in a TV series. Granted, that isn't always the case because look at The Last of Us. They didn't use they used the voice actors to be different characters, and they hired other people. But at the same time, how Star Wars works. You don't put such a big name on one actor's face and then you go retcon. We're going to cast them as someone completely different, because to us as Star Wars fans, that's who we see that as. That's like you taking Starkiller so early on in the Force Unleashed games, and if he came into the live action canon, we would be like, we want that actor. We don't want some just random person that's booked, because that our visual representation and all we've known of that person in that universe is him.
Yeah. Well, exactly. I like. Yeah. If Cal Kestis comes in live action,
I'm all here for it. That my hype is just there for Cal Kestis in live action, because I love Fallen Order. I would love Jedi Survivor.
I think it would be amazing.
And especially with the Zephyr references, like
exactly,
it's right
it's
there.
Subjective for this, like it's subjective for Ahsoka right now, but I think that's where it's going. But it was absolutely referenced in the Bad Batch on the episode where they're on that mountain and that they escape and essentially unlock that ancient technology, where I think it was like the mine for Sid. So they're definitely leaning into that, and that's going to become a thing. Yeah, it has to be.
I mean, even in the Bad Batch as well, you can argue that the reference Fallen Order very early when they was on that junk planet trying to get the chips out of their heads. Like they could have gone anywhere. They could have gone anywhere for that, but they went there. Yeah.
Here's a question.
They're already trying to introduce people, to Fallen Order without mentioning Cal yet.
Yeah.
Here's the question I wanted to ask, though. No, you're all good. So what I was going to say is, with Ahsoka being the way it is and how they've lined it up, do you think we see any other surviving Jedis come and help out Ahsoka from past history? Do you guys think that they could play into other Jedis that have been around that are trying to help the bigger picture of things get involved as well? Because we saw kind of little teases of it in Obi-Wan. We saw a little bit of teases in it with what is it? It's Andor as well. We saw a couple little teasers within Andor. So I just want to know what you guys think, if they could play that into Ahsoka.
I'll let you answer that, Liam, first.
I definitely think we're getting Captain Rex, and I know that's not a Jedi question, but I definitely think we're getting Temi as Captain Rex. Like that's
Do you think we'll get any other members of the Bad Batch? I'm thinking.
I hope so.
No, but I have a theory on why that is.
Okay.
Do you guys do the comics?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, the Star Wars comic that's set between A New Hope and then Empire, then they reset it and did Empire to Jedi, where War of the Bounty Hunters came in.
Yeah.
But the original one, I don't know if they pop up again, but there's a stormtrooper. Well, there's the troop led by Sergeant Creel, so he's the lightsaber wielding stormtrooper. Yeah. But a lot of that troop is Imperial Troop 99, and if you look at the imagery, they look like a lot of the Bad Batch. And when they very first come in, when Creel first comes in to take over, their previous sergeant dies. He takes over from the previous sergeant. That could be Hunter.
Right,
so given that we're only getting another series, I don't know. This is just it actively says that their name is inspired by Clone Troop 99, which is the Bad Batch. But are they another? We talk about cloning. Are they another version of the Bad Batch? And they basically, our Bad Batch dies, and then there's an Imperial version of the Bad Batch who become Imperial Troop 99.
I could see that.
Yeah,
I like that a lot.
But who knows? But it's awesome to speculate. On the Jedi stuff, honestly, I don't know. I think if you ask Dave Filoni, if Dave Filoni was given absolute free reign, I think we'd be getting Plo Koon.
Oh, he would definitely be like, if I
somebody must have him on lock. Yeah. Somebody must absolutely be like.
I will say this. I think. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Quinlan Vos. Because he was mentioned in Kenobi, he's not appeared in Star Wars forever. Since Clone Wars, physically, he's a cool ass character who should have obviously he was in Dark Disciple. He was in the Clone Wars. He was mentioned in Kenobi. A character that cool and a character with that much depth needs to appear in live action eventually. And if we're talking about Jedis who are sort of like surviving throughout the Empire and like have survived Order 66 and, you know, have been on the Outer Rim, maybe like Quinlan Vos has got to be in the conversation, right? Like, and obviously, you think Filoni would want to bring him into the universe.
Absolutely. Again, you don't mention it, you don't drop his name. My only thing is, a lot of time has passed from Obi-Wan mentioning his name and then where we are now. There's it's about 20 odd, 25, 30 years. It's hard to keep up with exactly where we are. But yeah, by the way, I just want to say, if I can, just real quick, if you revisit the Ahsoka series at any point, if you wait till the end and do this again, James, so Darth Veritas, who's in the comments right now, you need to get him on in my place to come on, because he is like the lore master of UK Star Wars TikTok. So you probably seen.
I want to have you both on, man. I think we should do like a regular thing of this on Wednesdays.
I was gonna say we need to start doing some more Star Wars stuff, man. This would be sick. Right.
Yeah, this is a cool conversation we're having, man. I like it.
But
games like Darth Veritas. Yeah, 100%. I've seen the content, by the way, dude. Yeah, I like it. I would 100% love you back on this for real. Yeah, I think there's a lot of people who could appear in this. Would you be disappointed if your expectations are up here and they be a little bit more realistic and it's down here? Like, because there is a lot of that sometimes in Star Wars, isn't there? I think the fans sit on such a pedestal and it's like, oh, everyone's going to appear. Oh, it's going to be great. And then it's just like, oh.
Personally, I'm very mindful of that, and I really try not to build up that. I love the speculation, but I certainly put no expectation into it. And I love to be like, go along for the ride. And that was one of the best things that was about being there on Monday, was to experience all that with other people. And you're like nudging each other and you're like, oh my God, this is fucking amazing. But I think that the only time I've felt let down is the Book of Boba Fett, and I still enjoyed the Book of Boba Fett, but it was just like, oh, this just wasn't what I wanted. I had a bit of an idea. So I think as long, like, I'm ready to enjoy the story, I'm ready for the story to be whatever it is, as long as they don't kind of go off on a weird tangent. I don't think that's going to happen, but I'm not going to put any kind of stock in, or this person has to pop up for this to be a good show. I think a lot of people did that with Kenobi. I actually really enjoyed Kenobi.
I thought Kenobi was fantastic for just what it was, to explain what he was doing in his like kind of.
It should have been a film.
Time. Yeah, it should have been. Yeah, it should have been a film.
Kenobi deserves a movie, but you know, it is what it is. But
yeah. But it was still a great series, and I love the fact they brought Anakin back, and they got to finally do in a live action style one of my favorite ever scenes of being like, Anakin is no more, he is dead. I'm all that remains. Like, getting to see that visually was amazing. And also, I thought was a really cool note in Kenobi, which also still ties back to Ahsoka, is the mask breaking scene where you see some of Anakin's face. Ahsoka does the exact same thing, but Ahsoka does it on the opposite side of the mask. Yeah. So it's two different people in Anakin's life that broke and damaged his mask to reveal his face again. Obi was the one side, Ahsoka was the other. I love that detail.
It was beautiful. Everything. I think when people look back at Kenobi now, and I think because I've recently done it, now that all the hype is gone and like all the opinions have been swayed, all the opinions have gone this way and that way. I think go back and watch Kenobi. I do agree still that the Reva situation or the Reva situation, I think she had a lot of screen time and I thought it was quite unnecessary. I do think, and I think Andor suffered from this as well. I do think there were certain episodes that just didn't need to be an episode, or an episode, or two episodes that could have been one episode. I think it suffered from that.
Andor suffered the worst for that.
See, like, I completely disagree. I will die on the hill that, to where we sit today, Andor is the best Star Wars TV show that we've ever had. But
I didn't mind it.
I longed for that though. Long before it came out, I've said to a lot of people, I want to see a world of what it looks like to not be a Jedi, to just be an every man in the galaxy and see what it was like under the Imperial reign, and then to see a bit of the inner workings of the Empire as well, away from the elite, away from the Emperor, away from, like, I wanted more of that, and it gave me it. Loved it.
The only issue I have with Andor, and it really is the only issue, because in the big picture, I think the story was quite good. The only issue I have with Andor, there was 12 episodes, and I think it fell into a trap of, for every third episode was an episode that was worth tuning in for. The two previous to it was kind of a build up, and I think it fell into that trap of, that's what kept happening in the show. Like, for example, you had a show where there was literally, I understood that there was planning, like, say, the raid on the Imperial base. I didn't think they needed to be 45 minutes of talking on a farm. I think Boba Fett also suffered from that, if that makes sense. I think there's a difference between plot development and screen filling, and I think sometimes it fell into that trap. But as a whole, I enjoyed the story of Andor, and would I be excited for a season 2? Yes, I would. I'd watch it.
Well, you should be, because we're getting one. And the season.
Yeah, we are getting a season. I'm the same as Rhys on that. Is like my only thing with Andor was like, I started watching it on the train journey to like kill time on the train. It was like 3.5 hours of doing it on the train. First 2 episodes was fully hooked. Third episode, you just like kind of took me out of it, because you did build up, and then I was expecting like this crazy moment, and then it was like, oh no, we're gonna pull you away, because we're now gonna focus on 3 other characters that we now need to build them up. And like as Rhys said, we didn't need this whole farm episode of will they, won't they? Is he gonna do the mission? Is he not gonna do the mission? It was like, we know that's gonna happen, because we saw Rogue One. I understand you have to give context of how he got to where he was. I understand that you want to build it. But, like, honestly, the whole will he, won't he, it was, like, not needed. We could have had a couple of scenes where he's like, I don't want to work with these people. I don't get why I have to then we kind of speed rush it a bit to be like, no, you've got to do it because you know what's coming up.
So my view on it is, I think where Andor, because it is divisive, I totally acknowledge it's divisive, and I think where it becomes divisive, it was a very different Star Wars project. Star Wars is very camp, it's very pew pew, it's very like, you know, it has always been what Star Wars is, and this was very different. And my view on Andor was, if you took all the Star Wars badges off it and put it on Netflix, and it is what it was, people would love it, like universally a lot more. It'd be that thing where it's like, have you seen Andor? Have you seen that new Andor series on Netflix? But because it was different in the Star Wars universe, and as Star Wars fans, we have a level of expectation. I think it's just some people weren't prepared for it, but I think it was a bit of that. And I think, I personally loved it, but it was just, for me, it was a bit of a breath of fresh air in that world.
More hate than it needed to have. I do agree with that. It had way more hate than.
Oh yeah, like it deserved. I heavily agree. It's still an amazing series. It still really pays off. I just have my personal gripes of like me as a world builder myself, with like the stuff I do. I don't like where you're dumbing down the character for an audience that already know what's coming in. I know you're trying to do it for an audience that have probably never watched Star Wars before. At the same time, you're trying to drag new eyes in, but we know where Rogue One is because we've watched Rogue One. So why are you taking away the values we already know this character had going into Rogue One and dumbing it down in a couple of episodes was my only like thing that took me away from him. But I think that's just because I had my visual expectation of going into Rogue One, because Rogue One is one of my favorite Star Wars movies of all time.
Definitely agree with you on that one. I think for me, that was more about, you know, when we first meet Cassian, he's not Cassian Andor from Rogue One. And it's like it's showing you that ultimately he was the reluctant hero. He didn't want to be that guy. You know, he wanted to flee. He then fled with his money. Then he was unlucky and got locked up for like something that he actually shouldn't have been locked up for. And then
so dumb. That was, I'm sorry, that part really annoyed me. Just the whole mini prison arc. I'm like, how many episodes do we need to know that he's been incarcerated?
That was like the best part.
No.
But like,
No,
I think it was the part, like, but it from what I wanted to see, it actually just showed how indiscriminately the Empire kind of came down on the general person. That's ultimately what it's supposed to do. And then when
I agree. Yeah, on that point.
Do you know what? I agree with that, and I am totally with you on that. My only gripe with that is, I understand the point that you try to make. I understand, like I get what you try to put across. You don't need to put across that point for 2 hours. That's
the exact same as me. It was like, we know how the Empire has already been corrupt from everything we already know of Star Wars. We already know that if you've got a little bit of political power, you can kind of get away with a lot more shit. Look at the Jedis, look at the freaking, the actual Empire, look at higher up people. We had a really great episode where it explained the common man being looked down upon in like the first few episodes anyway. And freaking Mandalorian also did that really well, I'm pretty sure, with the I am right with saying one of the Mandalorian episodes had the Doctor in it where he
Persian,
the whole Persian thing. We got told how the common man who did some bad crimes prior, if you like effed up, you proper effed up. So it was like, seeing it in Andor, I was like, I get it, but 2 hours of this, I've already had something else show it me in 3 other movies.
The one thing I would say, Ross and Rhys, I don't know how you watched it. Did you watch it week on week, or did you kind of group watch it, binge watch it, or?
I know I watched it week on week.
Okay, so I think I could definitely see where you're coming from, Ross. With I can see where you're both coming from. I do agree that it's very divisive, and regardless of that whole, is it Star Wars or is it not? Like it's not for everyone. It's not. It's a very different style. But I definitely think at the same time, even I couldn't binge watch it. It like you needed a week to mentally prepare yourself for the next episode, and I personally like that. Like, but it's I do get that.
I think that's where I realized I just need to start watching it like once a week type of thing. Because I binged like 3 episodes and I was like, I am drained, like mentally drained because I had so much like info, like additional information dump on me. And I'm like, I love this. It's Star Wars lore. It's freaking dope. I'm consuming it. I hit the 3rd episode and I'm like, cool, you've done this really cool build up. That's where we go. Oh, we're deteriorating to other characters. Yeah, let me just zone out for a hot minute then. I'm just going to take a break.
I totally get that. Like, I would be the same, because it would feel like if you sat there for 3 hours over like a particular 3 episodes, you could get to the end of that and be like, what have I learned from this?
Literally. That was what my worry was, is I can't binge more of this because I'm now going to question, what am I learning in episode 4 or 5 that I forgot about in episode 1 and 2 now?
So just to get back onto the
we got totally off.
No, it's fine. I can link it in perfectly because we're talking about different series and different like characters and stuff like that. The final point that I want to kind of end on here is, like, in my opinion, it's quite obvious that we're going to see it, but I think in the show they point out, quite even in the logo for the TV show of Ahsoka, is you've got the triangles there, you've got the O, you've got the Purrgil and the pictures of the Loth wolves everywhere. I think it's sooner rather than later we're going to be seeing the World Between Worlds. In your guys' opinion, how do you think that's going to be used, if you think it's going to be used? I don't see a show where you've got the Rebels teased it way back, obviously, in their show when this Ahsoka was saved. You've got what's the bird called that follows her around?
Morai,
thank you. You had Morai in Rebels. You probably going to see her in this at some point.
Surprised we haven't. I thought the beginning of that would have been a perfect when she was walking up to that temple, just to have started with more.
Yeah, just like have a bird in the distance.
Yeah.
Sat there. I heavily agree on that. Yeah. Or when Ahsoka landed in to get obviously get in and get the information she needed.
Yeah.
What not if the bird just sat and landed on the plane when she parked up? Something like that.
Or landed on, or I mean, the 3 pillars were there. Why didn't Morai land on the daughter? Like, think things.
There's
like
so
that.
many, there were so many camera spots where they could have done
it. But
heavily
regardless, I think it's sooner rather than later we're going to be seeing the World Between Worlds. Who do you think is going to access it? And if you do think it's going to be accessed, how do you think it's going to fit into this TV show? I'll start with Liam. How do you think it? If you think it's going to work, how do you think it's going to work?
I don't think it is. I'm not convinced it's going to play a pivotal role in this. It might make a bit of a cameo appearance or reference, but I'm just concerned that there's a lot to do in this. And the world between, we don't really know a lot about the world between worlds, and there's a lot of confusion over it because everybody's like, "Oh, use the world between worlds to retcon the sequels." Like, it's not how it works. Time is not like it is in the MCU. Time is linear in Star Wars, and people forget we're telling the Star Wars story from a futuristic looking back point of view. Everything that has happened. Nothing gets changed, even though we retcon all the time. But never mind. But I think it definitely will play a part because it's such a big thing. It'll play a part in the Filoniverse. I think it'll probably be towards the end. It might have a ever so slight reference. We might even see an engagement with it in some sense, but I think it'll push into a future project, and I think it'll focus more so there than here.
Yeah.
The way Star Wars goes, we go to the next episode and straight away they're like, "Oh, we're in the world between worlds," and you're like, "Oh, well, okay, I was wrong." And
I was completely, I just got screwed over. My whole theory's out the window.
Ahsoka just pulls out Rey from a window and Rey saves the day. That's the way it goes. No, right, Ross, what do you think?
So I do think the world between worlds will be used, and very much as Liam said, it is such an integral part of understanding more in depth of the Force, how the users of the Force are, and just everything about it. It is the encompassment of such a deeper understanding of the Star Wars universe. It's not something just to kind of throw away. So I feel like they would use it at the end of the series to lead into a new project. Personally, I think it's going to be Ahsoka either taps into it or a returning Ezra with the help of other Force users. And I think it's going to be another way of trying to do how Fallen Order had the map compass to find Force-sensitive users very early on. I feel like the world between worlds is going to have this connecting of seeing at least Force-sensitive or just the energy of certain universes having the parts and certain parts of the galaxy. I see it as kind of they use it more as a gateway of where certain Force is being used.
Okay, I like that. I understand what you're saying there, to be fair. Yeah. The only reason I bring it up is, like I say, I think the symbolism is definitely there. But one of the biggest points of interest that caught my attention and made me think of the world between worlds is when Balin asks Morgan about Thrawn. She says she's basically speaking to him not just through space, but through time. And I was like, that could be conceptualized as, it's a long way away between this galaxy and the other galaxy. Or literally she's speaking to him through dreams, witches and witchy things through time. Somehow the world between worlds plays a role into that. That was my thought about it. Because there's only really one place we've seen kind of time travel per se in Star Wars, and it's the world between worlds where you're able to peer into the past and the future. So maybe the Night Sisters access that realm in a different way to, let's say, the Jedi / the Sith, like what they saw in Rebels. That's the only reason I bring it up. So yeah.
Can I spin it around? Can I ask you a question?
Of course,
Would you be disappointed if it didn't show, given the when we talked about characters not showing up or showing up and making and breaking series? Do you think it needs to make an appearance, The World Between Worlds?
I think. Well, first of all, disappointed, no. Surprised, yes. I would be surprised if it didn't show up. I think at this point it kind of needs to, because like with all of the teasing of like obviously, like I say, with the Mortis gods, with the fact that the logo in Ahsoka itself pretty much like is a massive Easter egg to the World Between Worlds. You've got the line going through all of the words. You've got the triangles from A to A, Ahsoka, and then the O is like a portal to the World Between Worlds. You've got all the Purgle, like all like going around in circles when they brought up the map. Morgan brought up the map. Just all of those things like point to the World Between Worlds, and then you've got the mention of like Lothal and the Loth Wolves.
Yeah.
I would be surprised,
especially with the mural as well, showing the wolves in the mural.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of still confirms they are making the World Between Worlds still apparent and still being. I would be
very surprised if they didn't show it in some kind of way. Maybe they don't go there, but maybe Thrawn, like I say, this goes back to my Night Sister theory from the very beginning of this video. Maybe Thrawn is working with the original Night Sisters. Maybe they have like kind of a cauldron or a magic thing. You know, like kind of how Palpatine had it in he was able to access the World Between Worlds in Rebels, where he kind of used Force or Sith magic to access the portal to try and get Ezra and Ahsoka when they chased him out. Maybe that's how the Night Sisters access the World Between Worlds and how the contact from galaxy to galaxy. That maybe theory, maybe a loose theory, maybe a very thin theory, but that is a theory.
Well, that's the fun of being a Star Wars fan. We come up with we expand on so many things. We draw so many conclusions from, like crumbs and like that are laid before us to consume, and then they go, yeah, it's not that, and it's this. But yeah, that's the one thing I love is just exploring theories, and I think that's the thing where you have to be cautious, and some people get carried away with it, where they create these theories. And then that becomes their expectation rather than just like, this is my theory. If I'm right, I'm right. If I'm wrong, I'll enjoy whatever I get.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's the one thing that you going back to what you were saying about like Star Wars fans kind of create this expectation for themselves. It's like they want to be proven right, to be like, cool, I know my logic, I know my lore. Whereas, there is multiple times you have people have just the enjoyment of being like, oh my god, I had parts right, but I like the changes that they've drastically done. Like, I can't remember the guy, but he used to write for Star Wars. He was in Scooby-Doo. He was one of the actors.
Freddie Prinze Jr.
Thank you, Freddie Prinze Jr. He had a massive rant about like being like, dudes, Star Wars is Star Wars. I've spoke with George Lucas. These are the logic and the lore I know because I've had it from the actual creator of Star Wars. If you don't like what I'm telling you of who is going to be the bad guy, who's going to win, who is going to lose, I don't know what you want me to tell you. I know Star Wars because I've directly spoke to the person who made it. And I just find that really funny because people want to argue with him, and he is one of literally the known guys who wrote Star Wars canon. It's crazy to me that us as fans are trying to argue with actual intellectual property writers.
Okay, so just to end on that and just like to touch on it, like to expand and also to end on, because we've mentioned certain things that we might be disappointed on, or some things that we'd be shocked if it didn't appear. Is there anything that you guys are expecting to happen in this in the show that you'd be disappointed or surprised that if they didn't show up? For me, I'm just along for the ride at this point. I trust Dave Filoni and I trust his vision in this show. Is there anything that you guys would be disappointed about if it didn't show up?
Not really, no. As you said, I'm very open-minded to the Ahsoka storyline and where it can go, because obviously we're kind of following along from a lot of Thrawn's perspective, but it's named Ahsoka, so there are going to be things we never really saw from Ahsoka. There's going to be people when she left the Jedi, left Anakin, all of that. There are going to be people she spoke to we don't know about. The only one that I want is getting to see an old-time Rex again. I'd love to see like an Ahsoka Rex just having a conversation like a retired Rex. That's all I want. I just want that nice little connection again.
It would be beautiful. Liam?
I'm not going down that road of like, because if I allow myself, I'll be disappointed. There's loads I would love to see. James has said there, like Zeb and Callus. I'd love to see a live action Callus. That will, and we've seen Zeb, but I'd love to see Callus. But I think if we're going in, especially after the first 2 episodes, if we're going into this other galaxy, the expectation there is actually we're going to meet a whole load of new characters rather than existing ones, because it's only going to be the characters that pass through to that galaxy. But I think the only thing that would disappoint me at this stage now, from what we've learned so far, is that kind of small. I'm leaving it as a small plot hole. If it kind of becomes a gaping one that they never really explain around how Morgan knew that map was there and how that map pointed to Thrawn.
Yeah,
because I can't see it. I've talked about it, I've plotted it, I've thought about it, and I can't see it. I'm sure it'll get explained. Filoni wouldn't leave such a gaping thing, but I think it's that one little thing that's in my head, and it's just eating away. But I will absolutely give them time to cook on it.
Yeah, well, that's, you know what, and I think that, to be honest, is the perfect way to look at it as a Star Wars fan. I know we've had ups and downs in the past couple of years, like on both sides of the fence. Some people are disappointed in, like you say, with Andor. Some people loved Andor. Some people love the sequels. Some people hate the sequels. Some people love Kenobi. Some thought it should have been a film. Like, you know what I mean? Like, just for this, maybe like we've got a solid character who has been established for a long time, not just in Ahsoka, but you've got the Rebels cast there. Like you said, I'd love to see Zeb. We saw him in The Mandalorian for a little bit.
Yeah.
I think we just need to enjoy it as it's going on right now. There's a lot of situations in Star Wars where you look back at it and think, God, I wish I'd have just like been along for the ride, or like been there and just enjoyed it for how it is. Like, don't let other people's opinions influence your own. If you enjoy it, you enjoy it.
Absolutely.
A moment in time, Ahsoka, I never thought we'd see Ahsoka in live action ever, let alone her get her own TV show. But for a character who just showed up in an animated show over 10 years ago now, gets her own TV show, and she's one of the fan favorites, and she's here. Like, do you know, like we've come so far as Star Wars fans to get all this content. Just sit back. Don't be so quick to comment on videos. Don't be so quick to put out stuff, and just think. Just
enjoy the ride.
Let's see how it goes. Yeah.
It's a travesty, by the way, that we've made it to 1 hour 38 minutes in, and we haven't even talked about Chopper, by the way.
Oh, and we haven't spoken about David Tennant being the best freaking droid of all existence. Like, Yang, you just...
And do you know what, like my comments on these, because we'll not go too deep into it, but my comment on both of them, and I think this is where Disney Star Wars has really evolved, is they offer the perfect comic relief now in a way that isn't seen to be comic relief. It's very natural. David Tennant is obviously a fantastic actor in Chopper. Everybody loves Chopper, don't they? But they've nailed Chopper again.
Yeah. I've just thought of something insane. If that masked figure is Petra, Huyang can recognize him through his lightsaber modifications.
He did as well, because he did mention the lightsaber had quite a few modifications.
Well, that's what I mean. He was mentioning about Balin's. Like,
he said Balin. He said Balin's.
He mentioned Sabine had Ezra's, but she modified it. He could look at that double-edged lightsaber. He was like, it's got a bit of modifications to it, but the original structure. I was on a journey with a Padawan A long time
Don't
ago.
even, because that would be crazy.
I'm getting on the phone to William Hill and putting a tenner on that being Petra now.
Yeah.
Not because I'm convinced.
Like, that would be amazing.
If I'm not convinced it's him, but if it is him and I didn't make 50 quid off it, I'd shoot myself.
I know, right?
How cool would that be to introduce that, though? That would be the perfect way to, like, because Hugh Yang knew who he was, and so did Ahsoka.
Yeah. And this is my theory, is that they're going to stick with characters who are close to Ahsoka, but then, like, to Hugh Yang as well. Like, I'm convinced, and then it doesn't open the door for Gunji to come in. I can just see it happening.
Well, this was the big one. Like, as soon as they introduced Hugh Yang, I was like, right, this is huge, because that is literally your database of every lightsaber known throughout years. Like, the whole factory went, I've only saw that lightsaber once before, like 400 years ago. Like, the archive this droid has is menacing. Like, he could look at any of the Sith and be like, cool, I remember where you were originally from. Like, this is where it could be such crazy plot developments just from a single droid.
It would make sense. It would totally make, oh God. Like, because like I say, you know, he's obviously made modifications to it. Like Maul kind of did when he made his lightsaber kind of out of a cane.
Which is the coolest lightsaber.
It's so cool. And he's made modifications, like I said, to it, because obviously it looks like an Inquisitor lightsaber, but the foundation could still be there from his original Kyber crystal. Like, from the original build, he's just modified it. Like,
I like that a lot.
The only thing I'm going to say about Chopper is, I don't care how many people hate Chopper or how many people find he's annoying. I love Chopper. Get over it.
Who hates Chopper?
Oh my God!
Chopper is a
there's a big part of the Star Wars community that really don't like Chopper.
Right, there are worse droids in the universe than Chopper. If you're hating on Chopper, I'm gonna find you and I'm gonna like have very strong opinionated words.
If you're hating on Chopper, Chopper will come find you. Like,
he'll throw the tracker beams on you.
What I will say, just that obviously we've only had a brief glimpse at him, and he was perfect. But the jury was a little bit out for me on, I can't remember the woman's name who plays Hera. I know it's Ewan McGregor's missus.
It's Elizabeth Weinstein. She's the one that plays Ramona Flowers in Scott Pilgrim. Is the only reason I know that.
Love that James, by the way. Choppenheimer. But when we were first introduced to Hera, obviously she looks different to Rebels, and you've got to get over that, because the Hera, like, nobody looks like.
Yeah, no one's gonna like. Sorry, it's mode cat. It's a person trying to take an animate and look. The facial structure of an animation to a real life face is never going to be 100% accurate.
No, it's totally. I mean, it's unrealistic. But with Hera, what I found was that interpretation of her in Ahsoka, she was quite soft and a bit measured, but then her interactions, she kind of had to be, because she was playing the advocate between Sabine and Ahsoka.
Yeah, she was playing that in between.
In that moment in The Phantom, though, that was where she came to life, and I was like, her interaction in a battle with Chopper, she nailed it, and I'm like, I'm sold.
I thought the exact same. Like, that's one of the parts that made me emotional. Like, Hera and Chopper in The Phantom, I was like, it's Rebels. The way they're interacting, the way they're interacting, classic Rebels. There's some crap going down, but Chopper is still arguing and coming up with stupid things.
Like, have you been through my stuff? And she's like, no, I haven't been through your stuff. And
it's just the have you checked behind the spare battery? And he like reluctantly puts his hands on his hips, like, yeah, duh. Then actually checks it, and he's like, "Oh, found it," even though she was in.
Like,
the right.
You can hear him saying, "Yes, you have," and like, but it's like Chopper, like, it's like so good.
So good. I love Chopper.
All I'm saying is, I'm looking to try and find a Lego Chopper that I can build. I wanted a Lego Chopper in my life.
So a guy did do one, so a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, when I very first started on TikTok. I held like a mock competition, and people like built their own designs, and a guy built a chopper from his own design, cool. And then I think he did all the instructions for them and put them on Rebrickable. I think it was an expensive build 3 years ago, and Lego was a lot more expensive than it was 3 years ago. But I'll see if I can find the video, and I'll share it with you. But
yeah,
yeah,
man, that'd be amazing.
everything comes out, it moves and everything. It's awesome.
That's so sick.
Just like a final point, like what I wrap up on is, and it's not even a Star Wars question or anything. I definitely think this should be like a more regular thing. Like you say, you got James in the chat. I would love to get more Star Wars influencers on to talk about Star Wars. We do obviously cover pop culture on this wrestling YouTube channel. It's a bit of both. But with Ahsoka going on, I would love to make it maybe a more regular, just a conversation, even if it's just like a live chat. I think it would be great.
I think if we do, I think it'd be good if we do like the first like 5 episodes. So like kind of like where a mid-season point would be, so we have enough to talk about there. And then like the finale as well. I think if we do those, I think that'd be really good to do.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Exactly. We can definitely figure something out. 100%.
Yeah, we can work out those days.
But like you say,
there's plenty of us, so I can definitely send you some names.
Do you know what? I've been on Star Wars TikTok for over a year now, and I've not really interacted with anyone on it, and I really should do, because it's got such a great community and there's such great interaction in that community.
Yeah.
And you notice it as soon as you make a channel of it. I'm not being funny. I mean, I got to like, I kind of sat back after like the first couple of months, but like in like the first 2 months, I got like 1,000 followers. So like it's such a good community to be a part of. But with that being said, speaking of great communities, Liam, where can we find you, my friend?
Right now, mainly on TikTok. I mean, I'm not very active on TikTok right now. I've kind of fell out of love with TikTok. It's like the app itself is just far removed from what it was, but I'm still on there and I post once, twice a week. I'm probably the same on Instagram, but I'm more active in like stories and stuff, and like I'm far more just present on Instagram. So that is like kind of where I am. I'm on Threads. I'm not really. I tried Twitter. I didn't really like Twitter. I came off Twitter, but then like because essentially Threads connects to your Instagram account, I've got like 1,700 followers on Threads, but like nobody interacts with anybody on Threads, so it's like it doesn't feel like that.
It feels weird. I'm still trying to get used to Threads. Like I made mine and I was like, I have quite a lot of Instagram followers just from like in general, because I used Instagram a lot more throughout university and stuff, and it's like, cool, I have the same amount of followers on Threads, and this is basically a new form of Twitter. Let me write some threads. Yeah. And no one interacted. I'm like, okay, this is weird. What's going on?
I don't think a lot of people have heard of it. Like, is it like to be honest, that's why maybe people don't even interact. I don't know.
I think it's like slowly still building up, because obviously some people are thinking the Twitter drama will die down. Twitter will go back to Twitter and all of this. I don't think it will. That's why I've kept the Threads just in case.
Yeah, and that's it. It's like it's a bit of an ego player, but I look at it and be like, well, I've got 1,700 followers on there. Like, and now I had like 40 on Twitter, and I mean, I didn't even try on Twitter, but it was like I was a bit of an overnight success on Threads, but it was led by my Instagram following.
Yeah.
But like, so people are on there, but maybe people went on in them first 24, 48 hours, followed, felt it was a bit shite, and were like, well, I'll not kind of go back on there. And yeah, I don't know. It's like I keep because I'm more the Lego guy, I on Instagram I blur the line, so I do talk about more like the projects like Star Wars and MCU and all that, and even wrestling and stuff at times. Although I haven't got a massive wrestling following on there, but I'll kind of just talk a bit more casually and openly. But I'm trying to use Threads to kind of talk about non-Lego stuff. I do share some Lego stuff, but I try to be like keep that to TikTok and Instagram and use Threads to talk about. I do a lot of like very kind of in the moment book reviews, because I'm working my way through the Star Wars canon book timeline, but I don't go in depth. I'm like
the exact same thing. I'm just trying to get through the High Republic novels at the moment.
I'm leaving them for now because they're so detached. I'm just kind of push them over there. I'll come back to them, and I've just finished Tarkin, but then I went back and I've just then finished Queen's Shadow. But weirdly, because I listened to them, and Audible doesn't have then Queen's Peril or Hope, whichever the third one is, and I don't know why it doesn't have that, so that's really annoying. But yeah, the next one I'm going to do is I'm going to actually work my way through from a certain point of view. Because there's
I'm looking to do that one as well. Have you listened to Dr. Aphra?
No, I've read the books, but I haven't done the book.
listen to the audiobook, dude, because it's got a full cast of.
Oh, has it?
Yeah, it's an audio drama. It's fantastic.
Oh, okay. I need to try and find that then, because I still need to give that one a go as well.
Tokyo Jedi Lost, basically.
Yes, and I love that. I love that how they all had different things, different characters. But
it's fantastic, mate. Give it a listen. It's amazing.
I will do. But no, thanks for having us on. It's
always,
I feel like it's been like ages since like I've done one of these. I think like so James and I were part of we had a thing called Nerd Juice, and officially we still have, but like life just got in the way, like with some other friends, and we've just never kind of picked it back up. And then with that, I've never been on anybody else as well. But I always love enjoying Star Wars.
Try and start it back up, dude. I'd be a guest on that for sure.
Yeah.
I am not. All I'm going to see is I am not the problem in that group. That's all I'm going to say.
Shade.
Absolutely. Absolutely tell them that as well.
Right, Ross.
Yeah, man, it's been great having you on, man. Like, as said, we'll hopefully get you on, and we'll try and get you on for a wrestling one as well, because of you saying how you're a big wrestling fan. We'll have to try and sort out a wrestling one with you as well.
Absolutely. Are you guys going to EW this weekend?
I'm not, because it is my little one's birthday, so I can't.
Oh, that's fair. That's a good excuse.
Yeah. I'm not going simply just because I've not been able to keep up with it for the past 4 months, so I'd be stood there like, what's the next match?
I'm not like
the card changed, by the way, last night. They had to make major changes to the card.
Right, but before we go on a little bit of a tangent, let's just wrap up, right?
Yeah, let's wrap up.
Yeah, sorry.
Guys, it's fine. It's been an absolute pleasure. If you've stuck around to the end, make sure you hit the like button. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more wrestling content and if you want to see more pop culture content. It's been an absolute pleasure having our special guest on today, talking about Ahsoka. I can't wait till next Wednesday. Liam, it's been an absolute pleasure. Go follow him and all the channels he has just said. He's going to start uploading again, he promises. You can go follow the rest of the Outcasted guys on X/Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. The description will probably show where they all are. I am assuming, thanks to Ross. Yes, please.
Yes, they do.
But for now, guys, I hope you have an amazing rest of your week. Stay tuned for the SmackDown review on Saturday morning, and peace out.
Peace.